Hey everybody, welcome to episode 13 of Swing to the Rhythm. You're gonna hold up the three, the 1, 3. My name is Gilbert here with D'Amico Dance. This is Damon D'Amico, owner, founder, good friend of mine here. This is again episode 13 of Swing to the Rhythm. In this episode, what we're gonna do is we're going to talk about men. We can do a better job of leading the lady in West Coast swing and country dancing. And we'll also have some tips.
That's right.
For the ladies in there. It's a partner dance, so that means that both have to work well.
And they're not getting out of this unscathed.
Exactly. So ladies on the live stream, you hear us. We're one of the only shows across all of YouTube and also on the internet that discusses current, past, and future trends with West Coast swing dancing and also with country dancing. Check out our products. We have the Crash Course Bundle for $12. We also have the 10 for 10, which is a West Coast swing challenge for the follows.
Anchor Step Challenge, yep.
Anchor Step Challenge. And then we also have master classes. So don't forget the 2-step or West Coast swing master classes. Men, if you lead her brain, her body will follow. And I'll say that one more time. Men, if you lead her brain, her body will follow. You want to make sure you have a successful dance. Let's give you a couple of tips here so that you have a second dance with that girl that caught your attention.
That's a good plan. Second dances are good.
Guys, you always want your stock to go up. I heard someone say that once, and I thought, man, that's a great saying. So, yeah, well, maybe a few times, but it stuck with me.
Your dance stock is either going up or it's going down.
Going down.
Which one are you? It's not staying like this. Your dance stock's going up or your dance stock's going down. How's your dance stock?
It hit an all-time high.
That's right.
To start the episode, Damon, we mentioned leading in dance. And why is leading so important? You ask the ladies to dance, a follower to dance.
Well, I think if we just think about the word leading or leader, whether we're talking about dance, not talking about dance, you want a good leader. You know, whether you're in a company and your leader's not great, you recognize that right away. You're like, this company doesn't have a good leader. My manager's not a good manager. So I think leading overall is just very important. And on the dance floor, it's extremely important because it's happening right now. What's so cool and so smart and so interesting about social dancing is that lead and follow is so spontaneous and it's happening in the now. I mean, so the information has to be clear and concise. You're going to hear me say that a whole bunch of times. You know, it has to be clear and concise. So if you're a leader that's unsure of what you're doing, you can only imagine the person on the other end of that that's having to decipher what it is that they want from you when you don't even know what you want and you're not clear, they don't really even stand a chance, right? Which is why we're so follow heavy. Created something called positive following like 25 years ago. And that was having the ladies be better at their job so that they can be great dancers even with brand new dancers or maybe some crazy dancer that you don't know out at the bar. And so when the followers are better all the way around, the whole experience is better. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be bringing the leaders into the fold and making them better along the way, which is what we're trying to do. But both people obviously have a very big job. But getting back to your question, when I made the comment about dance stock going up or going down, when you make the follower feel foolish, they don't want to do another dance. That's all there is to it. And they associate that foolish feeling with the person that they're dancing with. You know, so it's like you want that follower to go, that was pleasant. I knew what I was doing. He made me stay very calm. I knew what he wanted the whole time. Those are the kind of dances that make the lady go, I'm going to look for him for another dance later. I want to dance another dance with this person because they're a good leader. They remember that.
It was a positive feeling for them.
Exactly. They didn't feel foolish out there, and so they're not upset with the person that they dance with. Unfortunately, a lot of times, and I'll tell this to the ladies in our community, they'll take the blame for way too much. And I'm like, don't take the blame. You know your job. If you're a dancer that's been dancing for a little bit, it's okay for you to know and decipher the difference between whether it was something you could have done better or whether your leader could have done better. So don't make excuses, you know, for bad leaders. Too often I think the ladies are willing to take the blame for that kind of stuff. I just don't think that ladies should take the blame for that. You know, when it's not their fault, they should go, if I got better information, I would have executed that better. And you're learning on the fly. So even within one song, every time that dude does that weird thing, you know, you're like, whoa, that caught me off guard. Well, the third time, the fourth time, the fifth time that dude does that thing in that song, you ladies have already recalibrated. You know, the followers already recalibrated and they're catching that move that they were missing. you know, because they're doing their job and they're like, oh, that's not actually what it feels like, but that's what he wants. And now they're acting on the information, which goes back to your comment, you know, we're being funny, but you know, that is a total belief that we have here at D'Amico Dance, is that we're dancing with her brain. We're not dancing with her body. Dance with her brain and her body will follow, you know, so that's why it's so important that we're setting up the information. So we're telegraphing everything. You know, so I'm going to spin the lady, quick, and two-step, quick, slow, move her over and take my hand out of dance frame and into spin position. And now the lady, I'm getting a spin, and they're aware that they're getting the spin ahead of time, which is also one of the other points that we talk about often, which is that the ladies should follow, should anticipate everything. Followers should anticipate everything that's happening on the floor once they have their foundation and they're moving into intermediate dancing. You can recognize what your partner wants from you, and so it's just about not acting on it too soon. But if you're doing any kind of styling option, you're like, oh, I learned how to do this cute thing on my 3 and 4, and you're not being, it's not premeditated, you're not anticipating, you're not finding the opportunity to do that styling thing on the 3 and 4. You do your normal 3 and 4 that you always do, and you're like, I don't ever get the chance to do that cool thing that I paid for in the workshop. Well, that's because you're not anticipating. But how can the follower anticipate in a good way, that's not a negative connotation, in a good way, if the leader doesn't give her the opportunity to do so? Everything is a surprise. Exactly. You know, that surprise spin lead, and they're just not taking care of the follower. Oftentimes, I'll say something to the dudes, and I'll say, hey, would you dance with your grandma like that? Would you treat your grandma like that? Do you have any kids? And if you don't, would you treat your little niece that way? Would you dance with a girl that way, and someone you love that way? You know, so why are we so willing out at the club? Why are these leaders so willing to abuse women on the dance floor? It makes me a little worried.
Yeah, we've seen some forceful leads, and that's one of the things, whether you're at the country dance hall or whether you see it on social media, sometimes just depending on the couple, what style they're dancing, their level of experience with dancing, it's a little overdone. It's a little too much. And of course, the ladies, they love to dance. And like Damon said earlier, sometimes they take on too much of the responsibility for the guy over forcefully cranking them around. And Damon, going back to advice for the guys. So you did mention that ladies, sometimes they skew on this side where they feel like the results of the dance were too much on them. But for the guys that do care, that are taking lessons and that don't have the move down well, but they're willing to work at it, sometimes they also take on too much responsibility and they feel a lot of pressure with executing the move and making the mistake and being in someone's personal space.
Right.
And so along with practice
and not wanting to disappoint and so many other factors. Yeah.
There's like 10 items I can think of. You know, being someone's personal space, not wanting to make a mistake, not wanting to look foolish. I mean, the guys
it's a big job.
The guys have a lot going on.
Yeah.
Other than practicing, what mindset or what musical elements could they work on to help them get better?
First, I would have those really good couple of successful laps and see how my partner's taking, you know, the leads that I'm giving her. And I'm like, oh, I need to remind myself, move her over. Or if I'm dancing West Coast swing, I need to go through a list of these 5 patterns, give her a push, a pass, a tuck, a whip, you know, whatever, and then a spin or two and go, oh, my partner is capable of taking on the kinds of stuff that I'm learning in class. And then now you've got rapport with that person and you're dancing and you're grooving to the song. And now the metronome is in place, which is already going to be a recipe for success when you're trying to do a harder move. You know, whatever. And then when you do that move, you'd be like, oh, I didn't do that very well. Even if you aren't the one that messed it up, it's not a contest. And how far that goes with a follower when you say, I'm trying this new move from class, sorry about that. You'd be surprised how many times the follower is going to say, oh, we'll try it again.
Yep.
But when you have that face and they're not sure which way the face is directed, because it could be you making the face because you feel like you messed up and they're over there going, oh, I messed up his move and it was you. So I'm just really quick to be like, oh, my bad. oh, that's my bad. I'm working on this move, whatever. And so I think a lot of it has to do with delivery. If you're a new leader out there and you're taking class and you care about your dancing, you're probably already taking better care of the followers than someone who's not going to class because you've been prepped to do so. And we've been talking to you about take care of your follow, take care of your follow, take care of your follow. But when you're not ready, but yet you still want to do that move that you're learning in class, right? Because you're being challenged. You should be being challenged in class. I think it has more to do with delivery, which is what I tell the guys in class when we're live all the time, is that you should be saying, hey, I'm working on this new move. So you're giving the follow a heads up that you don't own this thing yet, rather than kind of dancing it and messing it up. And then because you're in your own head, you're making this face. And oftentimes, I hear it all the time, the followers are thinking that the face is directed at them when in actuality, and sometimes it is because there's some leaders out there that have no brains. However, and so they're over there, you're messing this up. And I'm like, dude, do you even know what you did to her? No way in hell she could have done what you were trying to do with the lead that you gave her. Yeah. But the ones that are actually trying, I think it's just a matter of saying that. Same thing on the flip side of that with you followers when you're talking to dudes, about their dancing. You could be like, that didn't really work, as long as it's like for the sake of becoming better. You know what I mean? That didn't really work. I think it needs a little bit of this or whatever, but don't do that. Or, it's like the words are so important, the way you present the information. It's like you get more bees with honey, right? Yep. So I need to follow my own advice. But I think it's important. Yeah, I think it's important that you let someone know that you're working on a harder move. And that way they're like, oh, let's try it again. And then if you were to, not that you want to always do that when you're out social dancing, but when you're dancing with like regular people you dance with all the time, you could always say, did that work? Did that feel right? You could say something like that. It's like, who cares really? I mean, some people are like, yo, you don't want to do that while you're out there social dancing. Well, some people absolutely do want to do that while they're out there because this is adjustments? Yeah, make adjustments. This is a real live test. That we're in the game. It's like, let's make adjustments.
The beginning of the episode, you had also mentioned that leading is not only on the dance floor, you will take that skill with you outside of the dance floor. And you also mentioned spontaneity.
Yeah.
So those two things seem quite challenging and critical. So as someone starts becoming a better leader and as they start handling and the neurons start firing faster because they're able to handle more complex patterns.
Right.
For someone watching just now that has no idea what something like that is like, what would you be able to compare that to?
Honestly, nothing. It's already been talked about, proven. There are many articles. I promise you, at some point over the years, I have posted many articles from different universities and different doctors who've done studies on the effects of dancing on the brain and why it's so beneficial for early onset dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, and a host of all of the other types of things. You're keeping track of more things at the same time when you're doing the type of dancing that we're talking about. Let me give a shout out. Everybody out there right now that is social dancing, leaders and followers, what you're doing is remarkable. I need you to know that at whatever level you're doing it, it's already remarkable. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I just really think that dance, especially social dance, is the most amazing thing that a person can do for their brain, their body, their well-being. I'm a believer. Of course, this is what I do. The podcast is free, so you don't have to pay for anything, okay? I'm telling you from the bottom of my heart that I think it is the best hobby, the best activity that anybody can get themselves into, especially moving into their later years. But if you've already started that journey earlier in your life, it's even more positive for you because you're building new neural pathways all the time and you're using them over and over. But for social dancing, as compared to doing routines or always doing the same patterns over and over, the spontaneous part of it is what's so unbelievable because it's happening in the right now. So you can, and again, I'll say it, if you didn't catch it at the beginning, if you don't know what you're doing as a leader, there's no way the follower knows what's going on. So I think a lot of times we get wrapped up as leaders in, I do want to do these moves because I think I'm being boring. And how many times have we had them raise their hand in class? And I say, how many of you ladies would prefer the dudes were doing 5 patterns really clean, really well, and to the music over 30 patterns that they think are cool off time? every lady in the class always votes for the 5 on time.
Yep.
They always do. But it's in our minds, I believe, as a leader, that we're not doing enough. We're not doing enough, which makes us push the boundaries, which are great. But then if those patterns are, if you're not ready to lead those patterns, that's becoming a negative experience. That's something that follower is going to leave going, that wasn't as fun as I hoped for, right? So, I mean, there's a balance, for sure.
Which you and I have discussed a couple of times when we do have a newer follow or we have an intermediate follow, and you and I have been dancing for a number of years, and so sometimes I have to check myself because I've left the follow in the dust, and I'm trying to do patterns too high above her level, and it's not going well. So then in those moments, sometimes more so than I'd like to admit, I continue the dance doing too intricate, complex patterns when I should stop and do basics.
I like to say, same as leaving them in the dust. You lost your skier.
Yep.
You turn the boat around. Like we're cruising, me and you, we got somebody skiing behind us, and we're like, woo, having a good time, drinking a couple beers. And then we look back, and there's the handle just dangling in the water, and there's no skier more attached. It's like,
and the wakeboard is nowhere to be found.
Turn the boat around. Go pick up your follower. And it's never too late to do that. It's never too late. So your leaders are out there and you're like, you're doing this and you're doing that and you're doing this. Just use some discernment. I mean, did you lose your follower on the last pattern? Did she get what you did on the last pattern? And so we're so motivated, I think, as leaders, dude's brain out there as leaders, that we're like, I want to do the thing and I want to do the thing. But you messed up the thing before it thinking about the thing. When in actuality, what you needed to do was really finish the last basic pattern and anchor well to be on the same page with your partner to try that complex thing, but you let it fall apart in the lead up to doing the complex thing. That's oftentimes why harder material falls by the wayside, is because you're not in the now, right now with what you're finishing. So it's like at any time that you leaders feel like, okay, calm down. It's never too late to do a basic pattern. Bring her back into closed and do a basic quick, slow, and two-step. Or do a side pass and take her into closed and chill out and let her calm down a little bit. Be a calming agent, for your follower.
Last couple of topics here to end the episode. What's the difference between social leading and leading choreography?
Well, obviously, when it comes to choreography, if someone's doing a routine in whatever, dance style, no spontaneity. I mean, is there some? Yes. Oftentimes that leads to a bad situation because you're so reliant upon doing the routine that when you get off, you're not necessarily prepared to handle that, because now you're freaking out because you got off, you can't get back on. And is your social dancing, strong enough to carry you until you can get back on or even through the end of the song, because I've had all those experiences. Anybody who's done choreography before, a lot of choreography before, has had that experience. If you've done choreography before, you're like, I blew my choreo. Well, how good were you? When you got off, how good were you?
To remember the count,
to either remember the count and get back on, or either to social dance until the end. But to answer your question, obviously you don't have to make the same kind of decisions on the fly when you're doing choreo because it's built in. Whereas when you're social dancing, especially something like West Coast swing, salsa, two-step, West Coast swing and salsa being a little bit more intense, than two-step, not much, but a little bit, again, you've got to be taking care of your partner. It's not just about you. It's about, am I getting my point across? Am I telegraphing what I want? Am I doing it without force? One of the things we wanted to talk about, which that kind of brought me to it, was I just want to remind you followers out there, you do not want a strong leader. And a lot of you keep saying that over and over. That is the wrong word to use. You do not want a strong leader. None of you want a strong leader. And if you want a strong leader, please don't ask me or Gilbert to dance ever if you want a strong leader. What you actually want, think about it, is a deliberate leader. They're very different things. You don't want someone who's going to muscle you around. You want someone who's going to get their point across to you better. They are completely different things, which is where our mantra came from, which was dance with their brain and her body will follow. So if I'm dancing with your brain, I'm showing you what I want. I'm not forcing you to do that thing. Well, too many of you followers out there have adopted the premise that you want a strong leader. You do not. want a strong leader. What you want is a deliberate leader. And we want to be careful that you leaders, you followers coming up, don't entice your community to all be over leaders as a result of you thinking you want strong leaders. What you want is for them to be better leaders, meaning more deliberate, clear and concise, giving you good information so you both understand and enjoy that experience greater. Don't make any leader muscle you around the floor. Don't make them do that. You know your job, do your job, you know.
And what do you mean by that, to make sure that I understand? So rather than forcing the lady to take steps. So
it's not about force, it's about information.
So what you're saying is that the ladies and the guys and the ladies both have a basic that we're doing.
Right.
And then
which is important, which is why it's important for people to understand the rhythm and timing of the dance you're doing. That's why some of the newer dances that are being done today, there's no rhythm and timing. And so the follower can't be on board with that. It makes it even more challenging, and you end up dancing off time a lot, and the followers end up missing leads, and because they have to completely disregard the song sometimes because there's no basic timing signature. Mm-hmm. You know, if we're both doing quick, slow, and two-step, then we're both doing that. And if it goes awry, we still have our timing to save us as a safety net. Mm-hmm. Same thing in West Coast Swing. Oh, is it a 6 or is it an 8? Mm-hmm. You know, so we're on the same page. That's why it's so important that if we're going to do a dance style, that it has timing and rhythm.
And the timing and rhythm, then you build on the patterns on top of the timing and rhythm.
Right.
And that's where the information comes from.
Right.
But where it breaks down, going back to what you mentioned about using force, it breaks down because some bar dances don't have timing and rhythm, and so the only thing we do have is pulling the lady around.
Pulling the lady around a little bit. Not that you can't still get your point across, but there's no rhyme or reason. You know, so she can't count on it. Oh, bass beat, snare beat. Oh, that means bass beat, snare beat. This going to happen here. This is going to happen here. Mm-hmm. You know, because she's in tune with the song. Mm-hmm. So when that happens between beats, that doesn't make nearly as much sense to follower's brain, you know, as it would as if we were using a time signature. And I knew when she was going to be on her foot. Mm-hmm. She knew when she was going to be on her foot based on the sound.
I see.
You know, so it just makes it so much leading and following so much easier when we're on the same page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the same step, same count.
That's right.
Same time.
Transferring weight at the same time.
Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I think this was a great topic to give the guys better insight into, if you have danced before, then you can relate. And if you've never danced before, this gives you a little bit of a better understanding of what the experience is like. Check out all of our digital products in the description. Like, subscribe, and hit the notifications button because we're posting a number of videos on YouTube, and we definitely love your support. Again, check out our products. We have the Crash Course Bundle for $12. We also have the 10 for 10, which is a West Coast Swing challenge for the follows.
Anchor Step Challenge, yep.
Anchor Step Challenge. And then we also have master classes. So don't forget the 2-step or West Coast Swing master classes.
Thank you guys for watching always. Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Take care.
Hey, thanks for watching on the live, you guys. Appreciate you.